It's Not Magic, AI and Accessibility Tools. So we're going to just talk about some of the AI tools that are available and what they do, and more importantly, what they don't do. First things first, my name is Zephyr Rankin. I am the Marketing and Communications Librarian at Velma K. Waters Library. You can contact me if you have any questions after this is over. My email address is zephyr.rankin@tamuc.edu. And if you have questions that you think any of us can answer, that URL there, tamuc.edu/askwaters, will send a message to all of our librarians so we can all sort of look at that and see who can answer it and get back to you as fast as we can. I'm also going to start this with a really big disclaimer. So the views expressed in this workshop are my views and my views alone. They are not representative of any official university policy. And when or if you decide to take a course of action after this workshop, use your own best judgment based on the information presented. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to show you what's out there. Okay, so in this workshop, we are going to do 4 things. We are going to look at AI and accessibility tools. We are going to look at use cases for those AI accessibility tools. We are going to talk about maintaining quality with human input, and we are going to finish off with just a little bit of balancing accessibility and privacy, because that's important to me. So starting with artificial intelligence in accessibility tools. Types of artificial intelligence are important when we consider this. So there are 2 really big overarching types of artificial intelligence that you're going to run into when you're looking at this. The first is analytical AI. It's a specific data set and use. It observes patterns and makes predictions. It tends to have a smaller data set, and this is the kind of AI that's been around since like the 90s. You've been using AI in some form for a really long time, just without realizing it. But what's taking off now, what's becoming more popular, is the other set, the generative AI. Those are the large, complex data sets, the LLMs with the chatbots, the image generators like DALL-E that you're seeing. And they use data sets to create an output instead of just making predictions. So like the type of AI that looks at 10,000 pictures of mammograms and says, these are the ones that look like they have breast cancer, that's an analytical AI, versus the generative AI would be like ChatGPT. A lot of AI tools won't tell you whether they're using analytical or generative or both. They'll just say this is AI powered or this uses machine learning. And the line between these is getting a little blurry. So generally, what you're going to want to do is you're going to look and see what they actually are doing to find out whether they're using that analytical or generative AI. So first, I want to cover some really big specific tools that focus on digital accessibility. Accessibility, Site Improve, Equal Web, Blackboard Ally, Userway, and Allyable all do kind of the same thing, but they do small things differently. So what they do is they analyze content and then they adjust content. Site Improve and Blackboard Ally are heavily analytical. Blackboard Ally also has the ability to take a PDF and turn it into an EPUB or an HTML document that would be more accessible to a screen reader, for example. And then Accessibility, Userway, Allyable, and Equal Web all have that same analytical way of they can look at like an online course or a website, whatever you purchase them to look at, because these are all paid services, but they have widgets that they add to your web page that will create something new, like alt text on any images or changing the code on the website so that any button that doesn't have the correct focus tag for keyboard navigation, they can assign it that tag. And then there are also a lot of other AI tools. Some of them are made for accessibility, some of them just exist and are used a lot for accessibility purposes. So chatbots or text generators or LLMs, large language models, whatever you want to call them. The chatbot is more like the interface, but there are LLMs that don't have a chatbot interface that just do the generation part. Image generators, speech to text and text to speech are both AI tools. AI assistants use a lot of that speech to text and text to speech technology in the background, but also use that technology to produce something to help you. video generators, AI translators and interpreters, image recognition, facial recognition, and health alerts like Seize Alert is a seizure detector that is a wearable AI technology. So we're going to go a little more in depth on some of the use cases for these AI technologies. Again, focusing more on digital accessibility because that's what we deal with most of the time in education. So web page, or this is also like a course shell analysis. The bare minimum that these AI tools tend to do is they analyze the content of a page. They can say, hey, you're missing alt text on 6 images on your website. Your video doesn't have a caption or transcript connected to it. It'll look at the heading levels and say, oh, you've skipped from heading 1 to heading 4. That's wrong. The screen reader doesn't know what to do with that. It'll look at the contrast to make sure that text and images are visible. It'll make sure that all of your links are properly labeled, and it'll make sure that your keyboard navigation works. It doesn't do anything after that. It'll just send you a report and say, these are the things you need to fix. Those are the sort of more basic, also tend to be cheaper options available. And then there are those automatic adaptations, like I was talking about, the widgets that you can add to the pages, or Blackboard Ally's ability to turn that PDF into an EPUB. So like a good example of that one is Accessibility. Their widget has the ability to scan your page using AI. And regardless of the code, it doesn't care about the code. It will look at the visual layout and it will say, this looks like a title of a page. This looks like a heading. This looks like a button. And then it will turn those labels on for those aspects of the page so that the screen reader can read it, even if you didn't code it correctly. There's also a lot of assistive technology available. A lot of that is very important for education purposes. Speech to text and text to speech are both very important for communication. Speech to text is available in like app forms that you can put on a phone. Everybody can download the same app. And then if one of your companions is deaf, or even if you're just in kind of a loud area and it's hard to hear, if you have audio processing disability, you can all speak into that app and it will in real time take that speech and turn it into text so that it's readable. And then text to speech does exactly the opposite of that. So you can write down anything and it will read it out loud in a increasingly human sounding voice. And that's also the kind of text to speech that you see like that runs Siri or Alexa, or I shouldn't have said their names, but I'm sorry if anybody's device is just turned on. Translation and interpretation use a lot of that same speech to text or text to speech, but also use a huge model of translations that are available. And then interpretation is on here because now they're making things that can do that live, speech to speech or sign language to speech. And then it's also, this isn't necessarily what it was intended for, but it's being used a lot by people who struggle with tone in their communication. So using like a chat bot to, hey, can you go over this email that I've written for my professor and say, you know, does it have a professional enough tone, or do I sound angry? Do I sound happy? Can you make this sound a little more positive? Vision, if you have a vision disability or if you're blind, then image recognition has grown a lot. It's not perfect, but it's growing. And facial recognition is purported to help you identify people around you. We'll get a little bit more into the weeds in that in the privacy section. And then navigation, not just digital navigation. We've talked a lot about keyboard navigation, but physical navigation, helping you identify if there are obstacles in the way, if you can't see. And then there was a really cool study, it's linked in this slideshow, so everyone will have access to it, of an automatic wheelchair for people with mobility disabilities that was able to go in 8 different directions, and then there was a stop. That all of that control was a camera looking at the person's face, and they could make 9 different facial expressions and set that to say, if I do this, I want you to go forward. If you do this, I want you to go this direction. Some more assistive technology for cognition. This is being used a lot, these AI chatbots for text summaries. So if you can't process a 50-page document, AI can summarize that for you. If you can't process it visually, but you can process it auditorially, then you can use text to speech to read it for you. And then there are also things that can reduce distractions on web pages. I mean, there's the obvious ad blockers and things, but also like if there's a lot of images on a page and some of them are decorative, it can hide those decorative images so that you can just focus on what you want to see so that you're not constantly being distracted by other things. For people with aphantasia, they've noticed that using image generators can help them see things that they can't visualize themselves. Does everyone know what aphantasia is? So it's when your brain cannot create images inside your head. So if you're reading a book and they're describing the scene and you're like, I cannot see this, I would like to see it. People are plugging that into an image generator, like, show me a house with 4 people in it, all doing these things, and then it visualizes that for them. And then we've talked a little bit about the seizure alarms, the heart rate monitors that will sort of read your biological information and say, it seems like you're about to have a seizure, or, oh, your heart rate's too high, go lay down on the floor. But the caveat to all of this is the importance of human input. So while generative AI is able to mimic that human output, and while it is a really helpful tool for a lot of people, they're complex algorithms. They're not human brains. And so they don't process information the way human brains do. So when you do use those tools to analyze or create accessible content, have it checked over by a person. It doesn't have to be you. And in some cases, it can't be you. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But make sure that there's human eyes on everything. So some common mistakes to look out for: inaccurate speech to text and inaccurate translations. That's, I think, my number one. We do a lot of videos at the library. We do a lot of AI captions for those videos through usually Adobe Premiere, but Camtasia will do them. YouTube will do them. I think Vimeo does them now. And the problem is that they're not always accurate. And depending on how inaccurate they are, it can be detrimental to anyone attempting to watch that video or listen to your podcast or whatever it is. And so have someone, a real person, listen to it and check those captions or the transcript to make sure that it's accurate. It also struggles a lot with dialects, accents, anyone with disordered speech who might not pronounce things the way that the AI has been taught that word is pronounced. There are steps being taken to improve some of that, but it often means that you as the user have to train the speech to text to recognize your own accent or disordered speech, which again veers into that privacy issue because you're putting your own voice now into the training data set for that AI. We also end up with a lot of nonsensical or unhelpful alt text when you're putting things into websites. I run all of the social media for the library, and so I get to see the AI generated alt text that it makes for all of the images that I upload. And often it ends up as like completely incorrect. I got one that was a picture of a person's head on their face. And I was like, okay, yeah, there's a person in there and their face is on their head, but that's not really telling you anything else about what's in the image. Or the one I get a lot is maybe an image of text. It might be an image of text. It will not tell you what the text is. I don't know why, because sometimes it does try, but other times it's just like, I think there's text here. And that's all it will tell you. Like I mentioned before, people are using it to summarize long documents. Sometimes that information is incorrect, or there's a lack of information that you're not seeing that's actually really important to it. And sometimes you'll catch it because you know the information. For anyone that attended Anderson's workshop earlier, the thing about dinosaurs building societies and creating art, if you know what a dinosaur is, then you know that's wrong. But sometimes if you don't know the subject and you're trying to learn the subject and you're using this AI to summarize an article for you, you're not going to get the correct information. And if you don't look at it or have someone else look at it for you, you're never going to know that you're getting the wrong information. Biases are baked into the AI. So in the example of the researcher that had aphantasia and was using the image generators to help visualize things for him, it refused to generate images of happy disabled people. they were all sad in all of the images that he generated, even when he specifically said, make them happy, put them at a party, you know. And then sometimes the output is not accessible. So this is the important part of, like, sometimes you need someone else to check your AI generation for you. So in that same paper where the researcher with aphantasia was using the image generators, there was a blind researcher that used an AI generator to create his data visualizations for the paper he wrote. But the data visualizations it created were not screen reader accessible. He didn't know what they looked like. So he ran them by one of his coworkers who was like, I hate to break this to you, but all of that is nonsense. So don't put all of your faith in the AI, because it's not always going to be right. And I'm going to steal Anderson's wording a little bit, but accessibility is not a burden to be offloaded onto a computer. It is a responsibility that we have to make sure that our information is available to everyone. And then we're going to just glaze over balancing accessibility and privacy. So there is a pattern of technology companies using accessibility to create AI that is, its real purpose behind the scenes is to increase surveillance. I will not be naming any companies in this workshop, but it is a pattern that has been noticed. And people were writing about this before the invention of most generative AI. So it's only a growing problem at this point. But privacy is a right that everyone has. And people should be able to make informed decisions about what happens with their personal data. And those who need or want to use accessibility tools should not have to sacrifice their personally identifying information to these companies in order to access the information that we are providing them. That's part of what makes it so good when a human is doing the work and we're just using those analytical tools to tell us, like, oh, hey, the code on this website is not keyboard navigable. But there are certain technologies that don't have that option. The facial recognition to make the wheelchair go in a specific direction, it has to look at your face. So anyone who needs to use that technology deserves the right to know where their information is going and to meaningfully consent to either sacrificing that information or to say, no, I won't give you my data. And that shouldn't mean I can't use the technology. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now. And here's all of the references. These are really good sources. This will be sent to anyone who registered, so I'm not gonna like make you look at them now. I have been Zephyr Rankin, and you can contact me tamuc.edu/askwaters to contact all of our librarians, or at zephyr.rankin@tamuc.edu. Thank everyone for coming. I will let you all get back to your day.